Okay, good morning. This is still the Board of good afternoon. Still the Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for the 10 a.m. session, April 6th. The next item is 6414BZ, 1320 East 23rd Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is Lyra Altman's case. If she could please call in 646. Just lost it.
Lyra's here.
Been admitted, so I believe her audio is connecting.
Okay, not seeing.
Okay. Ms. Altman?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect.
All right, let me swear you in.
No,
Do you affirm the,
state her name.
hi. Do you affirm to tell the, sorry, state your name, sorry. Sorry.
Lyra Altman from the law office of Lyra Altman.
All right. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Of course.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon. We heard your comments at today's executive session, and what we'd like to do is to respond in writing after I speak with my client.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're going to respond in writing and in drawings. Otherwise, there's no point. Okay.
We do hear what you're saying.
Okay, good. All right, so we will let you know what the continuation date is and the submission deadline, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any speakers on this one? So this is, again,
6414BZ, 1320 East 23rd Street.
and if there's anyone who wants to speak on this, please call in 646-558-8656. We'll give it a couple of seconds and then we'll move on. Thank you, Ms. Altman, for calling in.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You too.
You too.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, 1 second. Kurt, it's visible, right? Because I'm getting a couple of emails. So the next item is 12295BZ, 15265 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens.
Sorry, what emails you getting?
Chris,
Somebody was just admitted from the waiting room.
is that Chris, right? I just told them to log on.
Hello, phone number ending in 783. Please state your name.
Hi, this is Shane Rosengold.
Oh, not yet, Shane.
Please hang up.
Okay, sorry. It was just that I can't see the hearing since after we broke for 15 minutes. Now it's not on YouTube, but I will hang up. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. She's DOB for the next case.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So then the item that we're speaking about now is 12295BZ, 15265 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens. Mr. Wright, please log on. I just texted him, so he's. Lyra, hang up. Let me see if he's having any trouble.
Oh, I see. I'm not a host anymore. That's why I can't see this stuff.
Oh, is that it?
Mhm.
No.
It's okay. I'm happy with Kurt managing it. Okay. There, no, that's Shane Rosengold. It's the same person who we just.
Chris, why, Chris? We are on your case now.
It's the main problem with this program. So maybe we could announce again, this case is Mr. this is cases, sorry, I'm rolling up.
12295BZ, Rockaway Boulevard. The applicant is Chris Wright,
Well, it's
15265 Rockaway Boulevard, 12295BZ. It's Chris Wright.
It's Capel, Barnett, Madelon, and Schoenfield LLC. If this
I'm
is,
sorry.
please call in now, 646-558-8656.
I'm telling him to call in, so I don't know why he's not.
People may not have realized that we came back after the break. We need another panel that says we're on a break and we're returning at whatever time. So that way people will know that it's not broken.
Will do.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think we might need to put this on second call. 122-95BZ, Capel, Barnett, Madelon, and Schoenfield LLC, 15265 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens. If your case, please dial in 646-558-8656. If we don't hear from you in 20 seconds, we're going to move on to the next case and return later to you.
He asked me what time you're restarting, and I said we're on now. That was at 12:21. I keep emailing him.
See, that's a problem when they're not paying attention to the hearing.
Well, I told him don't call in until you hear your case, and turn off your YouTube. But I just don't. I did it 3 times already. I don't know. Maybe he can't get in.
Can you, Kurt, can you see if people are locked out? It's not locked out. There we go. There he is.
Okay.
Okay. State your name, please, and turn off your YouTube video.
Hello, it's Chris Wright.
Hi, Chris. You're in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I scrambled, sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let me swear you in, Chris. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond to city board member questions?
I do.
Okay, please proceed.
All right, Chris Wright.
Oh, we can see you. Good.
Oh wait, let me turn off the YouTube video. Yeah, I can hear you. Let me just turn off the can you hear me?
We can see you and hear you.
Okay, I just would turn off the YouTube video, so let me know if there's a problem. Okay, I heard your review session. Can I have a few minutes? I'd like to go to a few minutes to go through some of the history and some of the site conditions and maybe clarify some issues that'll make the discussion a little bit more focused about the comments. If I may have a few minutes, Chair?
Yeah, but please make it quick because we are.
I'll make it quick. I
Against
understand.
the
Just very quick. Okay. I was going to go through. I mean, they've been, these fellows, they've been around for 95. They've been in for 25 years. They are fully compliant. I just want to say they're fully compliant with all the conditions that were imposed in 1995 by the board, about 12 different conditions. Their site's in top shape, and I think it's something important. A lot of site plans come back decades later and are in poor shape. They are not. You have plenty of documents. The NOC, thank you, Carlo, for the precise NOC. Gives you a 40-page study of the site conditions which are in effect. They've never had a complaint ever. And I just want to say that. And when I met with them last summer, and by the way, the current tenant has a lease till July. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'll correct that. So they have a tenant in place in July. They're just not using it for loading facilities. They had to move that elsewhere. They have a skeleton crew there. So I'll clarify that in the facts and findings. So that's the proof of continued use. And I'm going to give you an affidavit from the clients who are specialists in this field saying they can't lease the space with any time constraint of any kind, even the community board's recommendation of closing for 12 hours on Sunday. If that's enough, I can give you a broker as well, but you can tell me what you want. Just quickly, the community board, what the community board did when I met with them on the staff meeting, they said, you know, they said you're a good tenant. We'll give you, I wanted 24/7. They gave me 24/6.5 in their land use committee. They said they're going to check to see if they have any issues with the neighbors. I don't know what they did, but that's what they said they were going to do. They came back to the full board. I spoke to my clients about whether they could be closed for 12 hours on Sunday. They spoke to the brokers. They spoke to the tenants. They said, no, the industry is 24/7, or they're not taking your space. And and I can give you whatever proof you need on that. And I thought it made sense, but they said no. And I went in front of the community board and said, I can't do the 12 hours. I didn't fudge it with them. There was a debate. 6 people voted against us, but the majority voted with the condition, which you've got, which says you can have 6.5 hours under the community board's recommendation. So I hope that clears up that. One thing that's very important is that if you look at plan number 3, it's the first floor plan. This warehouse is divided in 2. It's a 45,000 square foot warehouse. There's a wall right down the middle. And that's because, and I mentioned this in the NOC operation plan, sometimes they lease to 1 tenant, sometimes they lease to 2 tenants. It's a big facility. And I bring this up because do you want me to give you a minute to look at plan 3 of the proposed plans? You'll see on the right side of this wall are the Rockaway loading bays. And on the left side are the parking lot loading bays. And they do this so they can get 2 tenants. So if we restrict use, the 24-hour use to only Rockaway, they're not gonna be able to lease the other half of the warehouse. So that's in the operation plan. And I want to just mention that because that may not have been clear on the drawing. I think the current tenant has the whole place, but they have a 25-year history where it varies and they need that flexibility. And then what I wanted to talk about was the parking lot, because there were a lot of concerns about the safety there. And I think the best way to do that is if you go to the neighborhood character study and you go to, I know the chair, you'd reference view 4. If you could go to the page of views 1, 2, and 3, I could try to clarify what's going on in the parking lot. So want me to give you a minute to do that?
No, just keep talking. We'll.
Okay, in that drawing, the lower right-hand corner has a site plan. And the site plan shows our property, and you are right, Chair, that notch is R3X. The drawing had it wrong because it got rezoned from R32 to R3X, and the architect used the old site plan. So I will correct the R3X is in that notch down at the lower corner there. But basically, all the houses on 154th Street have a 30 to 40 foot backyard between my property and their houses. And in the BSA resolution 95, it's mandated that that wall be solid, that there's a small fence down there, and that all the HVACs point away as well as the lighting. So for the houses on 154th, they all have a long rear yard facing a solid wall with no openings and no HVAC. But when you get to the other end, you'll see a notch, which is the 2 interior loading bays in the parking lot. And they were designed so that they provided a buffer they didn't want parking right on the fence. And then in front of the opening of those loading bays, there's a garage of the person who's there, butts is there. And this is all designed. It was all a plan to say, okay, we'll have the loading bays here, extend the wall, and then there's a garage right where the loading bays open, the interior. So that was the idea there. And then I know there was comments about the house on 132nd Avenue. And I think that's why I asked you if you could go to view number 2, you can see that house is well set back from the parking lot. It fronts on 132nd Avenue. There is a small structure there. It's well set back. So it's a 2-story building, but it faces down only on the parking lot. It's well removed from any loading activities. And I just wanted to point that out. So that was clear in terms of some of the comments that were made.
Before you go on, I just want to point out all of that makes sense when you have hours of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, Saturday 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and no operation on Sunday. Now we're talking about being sympathetic perhaps to the idea of a 24/7 operation when we talk about ambient noise levels and so on in the middle of the night, ambient noise levels drop very low. And a person who's asleep or trying to be asleep at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, where there are semi-trailers pulling in and all the noise that it makes as they pull in and they back up and they're unloading and loading things, that's a whole other situation. So relying on the distance in the rear yards and so on of the residential properties isn't the way to make a case here. you're going to have to make a case of some extreme buffering if we're to get anywhere on this. And I would also say that even though there's a preference to rent to 2 tenants, maybe that's not how it works, right? Because if they were able to rent to 1 tenant, they are still able to rent to 1 tenant, or you break through that wall and you have nighttime activities always through the Rockaway loading docks. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to get anywhere if you argue against these.
I'm not arguing with you. I was just trying to clarify a few things. I'm not trying to argue with you. First of all, I meant to say, I don't want to waste time. I appreciate the board staying in place. I appreciate Kurt's workshop on Friday. I appreciate Carlos' help in getting the NOC done. And I'm ecstatic you're operating and functioning and moving forward. I am not arguing with you. I'm just trying to clarify a few things based on the comments. And there's less time to respond to comments because we don't have a day anymore. And I'm not arguing with anybody. I think there's a strong sense that the fence in the parking lot facing those houses should be made something solid. I tried to call my client in between the review session and now. I wasn't able to. So I think the idea that, I mean, right now it's a chain fence with some padding in it. I'm not quite sure. It's never been a problem up to now, but I'm going to discuss with my client, making that a solid fence, a solid wooden fence or something. You know, it's a high fence. It is, you know, and that seems to be something they could do without a tremendous amount of like reorganizing the site. And I think if there's any weakness to this building, you know, there's a solid wall, the length of all the houses. It's just at that one corner where it is simply, it's not a wall, it's a fence. And so I'm going to recommend to my client that they quickly come up with a plan to put up a soundproof fence there.
No, so I'd suggest further. So it's not just that you've got a wall backing up against those other houses. You've got a building, and the building has a roof and it has a floor. And so arguably the sound does not transmit from inside that warehouse into the neighboring properties. This we'll find out when we notice the neighbors, right? So
yes, we will. Oh, we'll do that. Absolutely. Yeah, I asked my clients, believe you me, when I went to the fields with the clients last summer, I first went and looked at their site to make sure it was in good shape and we didn't have a problem there. And I said, how are you getting along with your neighbors? And they said they get along with their neighbors great. And the community board didn't find an issue, but I have no problem, you know, notifying every neighbor on that block of the next hearing date so they can testify if they want to.
Okay.
No problem with that.
So when I'm talking about the building has a roof and walls and so on, and hopefully is doing a great job of disguising the sound of activities that go inside there, even in the middle of the night, right? However, yes. A wall all by itself without a roof isn't adequate to do that. So just building a wall along the property lines will not be enough. If you want any hope of using the parking area during those off hours or whatever extra hours, it would need to be significant tall tree, sound buffering, plant, landscaping. Otherwise, I just have to say, forget about using the park.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you'd prefer a wall. I didn't. If you prefer landscaping, I will go to the guy and say, I thought my mistake in the review session, that things are kind of rushed here, that you would prefer a wall. If you, and there's some concern about landscaping not lasting, I'll build whatever you want, you know.
Okay. No. So I'm talking about everything. We talked about belt and suspenders. We talked about an acoustical wall, and we talked about landscaping, both of them together, because the trees
Okay.
be tall enough to block, you know, in the case of that house that has a view in, et cetera. I'm recognizing Commissioner Otley Browner has her hands up.
Right. In addition to the issues of the sound emanation, you really also have to address the lighting, because if you look closely at the photos of the site, and I'm on Google right now, you've got a probably 20 and 20 foot tall lighting fixture with 2 lights on it that are right along the backyard of that residential property. And that should be moved, because if that's on 24/7, that's got to be very disruptive.
I mean, if I just may say, I mean, those lights have been there. I mean, not that I'm trying to say this wouldn't be a problem, but those lights have been operating from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. for 25 years, which is when people are home and on Saturdays without, they're designed carefully, the way they're set up based on the 95 reso to all point from the houses, and those lights are on at night from 6 to 10. I know evenings are late in the middle of the night different, and no one's ever complained. And I don't think there's I understand why you think moving the lights makes sense, but I believe the way the plan is set up, the lights work the way they are and do not reflect into anybody's homes between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. And I would prefer, if possible, not moving lights. I'm not sure where they would go. I mean, they've got to go along the fence. They've got to shine down on the site. And I believe the plan works. And maybe these people can testify to that effect.
So I'm just gonna recognize Commissioner Otley Brown, who has her hands up again, and about
Sure.
lighting, I'm assuming. And
Sure.
I also just want to say that you need to give us a lumen spread diagram, because we don't know that what you're saying is correct. And of course, a 10 p.m. annoyance of light is far different than a 2 a.m. annoyance of light. And Commissioner Otley Brown, did you want to add?
This is a case where I would ask for actual light meter readings.
Yeah, okay.
Light meter reading? Okay,
That's
I'm not a light expert, but I assume they know what that means, right?
Yes.
Light meter readings and the diagram you've asked on other applicants, I think, right?
Right.
That's the lumen spread diagram.
The diagram is usually based on modeling. So for this case, because the lighting's in place, I want actual readings.
Yes.
Actual light
Meter reading.
meter readings. Okay, I assume that they know. All right, I will.
Diagram, right? They're placed, the readings are shown on the site plan, and the goal is that you have a 0 reading at the property line.
Okay, I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I assume if I go to somebody, they'll know what this means.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I know the aluminum spread diagram is something in your website, so I'll prepare those. I'll have those prepared.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Shonda. Oops.
Yes, Commissioner Otley Brown mentioned what I was going to recommend, which is the actual meter reading. In addition to it, based on the plans that's been submitted dated 10/07/2019, it seems there are 3 light poles at the 3 corners of the parking lot. Though based on the photos, at least the Google Street View and from the photos I took yesterday from my site visit, there's probably only 1. So you should revise that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that.
So
on the
I'm
back of the
looking at
fence?
the plan that was submitted on 10/7/2019, because that's the only plan I have.
Which plan number?
Plan number 6. It says
Hold on.
existing and proposed condition plan number 6. And there are 3 light poles that are indicated in the drawing. I do not think that is the current situation. It is probably just 1, which is.
I mean along Rockefeller Boulevard?
Not along Rockaway, along the parking lot. So there are 3 light poles shown, one at the end of the parking lot along 132nd Avenue, then along the rear lot line of the abutting building on 132nd Street, which is right at the, which is 100 feet from 132nd Street. And that's the only one that is visible on the Google Street View and also from the photos I took yesterday. Same thing with the light pole that's all the way in the rear of the building by the last set of loading bay. I don't think those lighting poles exist. So if they don't, correct those drawings and only reflect the lighting pole that you're proposing to maintain and
Okay,
do
let me
the
just be
actual
clear.
right leading accordingly.
So it's the 3 poles along the edge of the parking lot that were about the building we're concerned about, those 3 light poles, right?
Right.
Confirm their existence? Okay, I will.
Yes.
There, but they were there in 95. I will confirm their existence.
I'm sure they were there in 95, but at least based on the street views and other things, it seems they are not. And
Okay,
if you're
I'll
not
confirm
planning
that.
to use them, then revise them and do
They're
the
not
actual right
there, they're not
reading
there.
based on what you're planning to keep.
Okay.
not what's
I
on
went
the
to the
plan.
site many times, but I didn't count the light pole. I will confirm the light poles in
Okay.
parking lot.
Okay, not just the light poles, everything. So make sure when you go on your site visit that you're checking that the plans look like what you're seeing, okay?
I did a pretty thorough walkthrough with the architect. I recall the poles being there, but I will double check the poles.
I'm going to recognize Commissioner Shetta, who has his hand up. Sorry, it's not unmuting. Just, there we go.
I don't have a specific comment, but I just want to clarify something to the applicant to avoid just back and forth between now and the next hearing. The luminous spread diagram is a diagram that shows you how much light goes to the adjacent property.
Right.
This could be done in two ways. First method is you determine how many light pole you have. You go to your engineer. He puts this in a mathematical model and run some calculations. And based on these calculations, he produced site plan with how much lighting that shed over the entire site plan, including adjacent properties. This is method one. Method two, if you have the lighting existing, and instead of doing the theoretical calculations, which we call a model, he goes to the actual site, like at night or usually at night, and take actual readings with a mirror and at different locations, of course, and plot these readings on a site plan and give us the luminous spread diagram. And that's what we're asking for. So when you go, because I know it's much easier for your engineer to do the theoretical calculations. So I don't want you to go to somebody and he produced this and then you get it to us and we say this is not what we're looking for. So I just wanted to clarify this.
Okay, all right. I will speak to my team and if there's a question, I'll reach out to the examiner. Well, Ms. Carlo, but I'll try to make sure it's exactly what you want.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shondell also has her hand up.
Sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. There is barbed wires along the parking lot. That needs to be removed.
There's barbed wire?
Yeah. Along the entire frontage of the parking lot from Rockaway to 132nd.
Okay.
Okay, I'll check that.
So I think, though, that we went through all of the issues. I think the most expedient way of doing this is if you take notes from the review session, if you haven't done so forever already, because we talked about a maneuvering plan to understand how site works and so on. I'm trying to speed up the review of this hearing. So I think the instructions were pretty clear in the review session. Unless you have a specific question, I'd like to move on.
I do, if I may. I mean, okay, but then let me just, I went through, look, this a maneuvering plan, I don't think it's necessary. It's been operating for 25 years. I think, paying for maneuvering plan to verify that a warehouse that's been operating for 25 years can operate with current trucks. I don't know that's necessary.
No, that's not actually what it's for. You're asking for a 24/7 operation.
Yes.
We're trying to understand how the trucks maneuver in general to use this warehouse so that we can understand how it's going to affect the immediate neighbors. If you want to not have, if there is a way for us to enforce zero use of that adjacent open area for during those after hours, that's one thing. But if there's a proposal to use that adjacent area, we have to understand how the trucks maneuver, how the parking lots are used. And I know that there's no tenant there now, but you did have a tenant, so there's probably lots of history there.
Okay, all right. I mean, everything comes off Rockaway Boulevard. I mean, the only entrance to the parking lot is Rockaway Boulevard. But I will, I see your concern is about how they maneuver around. Okay, I get it now. Let me just see if there's any other in the note. I don't want to miss anything.
The trash has to be stored on the inside. You can't.
It is, yeah, it is. There's a note on the plan. All the trash is the dumpster. According to the BSA Reso of 95, it can be outside, but it has to be near the loading bays, which it is. And there's a note on the plan saying the trash is all interior.
But there's a photograph showing the dumpster in the parking lot. So what's that?
Well, that's what the BSA Reso of 95 says. that the trash dumpster be kept near the wall of the interior loading bays outside. That's in the BSA resolution. I don't think they can get that dumpster inside. I mean,
No, it doesn't say outside. It says all trash to be stored on the inside of the building until ready for pickup. And the language
right.
is that the dumpsters have to be stored along the wall of the interior loading bays. So the interior loading bays are the ones on Rockaway Boulevard, not the ones from the parking lot. Those are exterior loading bays.
All right, I will tell them to remove the trash dumpster. I think
The basic rule is no trash is ever to be stored up against residential properties. That's just a clear basic rule. Why do the residents always have to suffer for these commercial uses that are non-conforming?
And I just a couple of quick comments. And there was a comment about whether conditions have changed or unchanged. What I did in the facts and findings was nothing's really changed since 95 out there. And in the facts and findings, I quote from the 95 BSA Reso about how this the Rockaway Boulevard and how it functions and the uses out there. So I think I addressed that comment by Champa, I think. I just want to point that out because I know she brought that up, and I think it's detailed in the facts and findings with direct quotes. The Rockaway Boulevard and the uses have not changed at all in that area. And I will address the in terms of the waiver of the rules. I will give you the lease. Is having the lease from 2016 now sufficient in terms of continuous use? I
think so. Commissioner Otley Brown, you want to chime in about continuous use proof?
Bills.
Wait, you're still muted. I'm trying to unmute you. There you go.
Yes, I just wanted to check really quickly. Yeah, I didn't see any proof of continuous use other than the fact that you stated that you have the lease that is showing that the people are still leasing the premises, but they're clearly not actively using the premises. So do you have,
sorry,
what,
go ahead. Sorry.
Do you have anything in the form of like property tax bills or Con Ed bills that show that there is some usage at the site? Preferably, actually not property tax bills, wrong, water usage, DEP water usage or Con Ed bills that would show that there is some sort of activity on the site, coupled with, or Google photographs. Because sometimes you go on the Google Maps, you'll see there are several photographs that make up the street view, and each photo could show the use as a warehouse over time. So you can actually just basically copy those photos into the submission that show the date on them.
In the neighborhood study I gave you, which has dozens of pictures, there's lots of cars in the parking lots. So
No, you misunderstand. It needs to prove it over a time period. I see you, Chase.
I thought it was from 2016, from the expiration of the term.
Yes, from the
For
expiration
the filing.
until the present.
Right, so it's 2016 to now. I have a lease. I will look for Con Ed water bills. You have dozens of photos showing, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to show what I've got. Showing, what they do is I'm telling you, they don't have trucks anymore there, but they have kind of a skeleton crew coming and going.
No, so the photos need to be 2016, 2017, 2018, like that to show continuous use, right? Not just 2016. And that's why, and you can have a lease and then no one's using it, right? So that means it's a discontinuity of the use as opposed to the contract that you're still paying rent on, right? That's why you need like a Con Ed bill to show the lights are on and that someone's actually paying to keep the lights on. And you wouldn't do that if you've actually vacated the premises. And Chase had his hands up, so I just want to.
And Mr. Wright, as we said in the review session, you need to go through the findings of the board's rule. That's rule 1-07.3 sub
I looked at
C. Yeah, C2.
I think it's C3. Okay, yeah, I looked at it.
3, I'm sorry about that. B3 for applications filed more than 2 years but less than 10 years.
Yeah, I looked at it and I saw the continuous use and the hardship. So the continuous use, I'll give you the lease, I'll give you the Con Ed bills, I'll find some photos, I'll give the water bills. And what about hardship? I mean, the hardship is, no one will, how do I show you other than affidavits from my client or from the broker that no one's going to lease our space unless it's 24/7? How would I do that? Hello?
The board can't make the finding for you, but just follow the instructions in our rules and provide the demonstration.
Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult. I read the section in between. It says proof of hardship, but it doesn't say beyond that. I'm not trying to be difficult. I mean, I can give you what I have, what I just talked about. I don't want to provide you with something that's not sufficient. And the only thing in the rule was proof of hardship. It didn't go beyond that. Unless I'm mistaken. The language of the rule you cited.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Your statement of hardship should be in talking about what would happen if you didn't have this variance, not
Yes.
if you didn't get to have the 24/7. So because we're talking about the variance, the term of the variance ending on October 2016, I believe it is, you have to talk about what would happen to this site if let's say, if theoretically the variance were revoked.
I see.
That's where your
I see what you're saying. Okay, I thank you for the clarification. Yeah, we would have an illegal use. Okay, I got it.
The prejudice showing is that absent a waiver of the board's rule permitting the filing of the application, the site would or would not incur a substantial prejudice or face substantial prejudice.
Okay, I got it. That clarifies. Thank you very much. I got it now. Thank you.
I want to go back to my comment on regarding the lack of information on the statement of fact with regards to prior conditions. I think I don't want to go back and forth and argue. I looked at the submission with regards to the board history and the compliance sheet. It's totally inadequate. It doesn't spell out each and every condition for each and every year that the approval was granted. So second of all, then I went to the statement of fact, and the statement of fact, it cherry picked some of the conditions. It didn't put all of them. So please go through. I don't want to go back and forth and argue which one is there, which one is not. They just go through each and every condition that is listed in both the years 1966 and 1999. And I think that's what you have. I think the date is wrong. It should be something different. But anyway, go through each one of those years, list each one of the conditions and indicate whether you comply or not, and put that in the board history spreadsheet kind of thing. And that way, we are consistent in both documents, in the board history and in the statement of fact.
Oh, you're talking about the board history document?
That's not what we typically see. We see.
Oh, I apologize. I followed
it's
a prior
incomplete
version.
Mr. It's incomplete, and so is the statement of fact. I just go through it in details and go through it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the board history thing, right?
And I move this case along, so I really need to ask you to please listen to this video and to the review session and just follow the instructions. And if you have questions about what they are, then contact the project manager, who in this case is Carlo. Okay.
I'm just trying to move things forward.
Okay, I understand, but we have a lot of other cases and I can't spend time here. And it's hard for us to work on this. We get thrown out with the videos and things like that. Do any other commissioners have anything to add? Well, I'm sorry, my video was off all this time. Does anybody have anything to add? Okay, so we will assign then a date of continuation. Please make sure you answer 100% of the questions and go thoroughly through the application materials. That will speed up the review of this, okay? Thank you.
Could I just please request, I know there's some information I have to deal with here, but not to push I know you have difficult scheduling, but not to push it out too far. If I can possibly get June sometime.
Not discussing the date. Okay, we can't do that here under these circumstances, all right?
I understand. I'm getting used to the new rules.
Okay, so now I ask that anybody who wants to speak on this item, now is the time to dial in. This is case number, sorry, I'll get there, Tony.
12295 BZ, 15264 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens.
And if you're interested in speaking about this, please dial in 646-558-8656. And I'll give it a few minutes. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for calling in and using the video.
Thank you, commissioners and staff.
Stay safe.
You too.
Bye. Okay, we can move on to the next, unless someone sees someone is dialed in.
Okay, appeals calendar, 2018-35A, 22 Van Street, Staten Island. Mr. Dale? Mr. Wright, please hang up. Thank you. Let me email Todd. Let me text him.
And also we had DOB on before, and I
Yeah,
she's is not on the list anymore.
The Department of Buildings has been admitted.
Great, thank you.
The applicant is connecting.
Great.
oh, Todd's, okay.
Morning.
Hi, sorry, I just joined with audio, so it should work now.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Shane Rosengold. I'm an assistant general counsel at the Department of Buildings.
Thank you for calling in.
Hey, good morning. It's Todd Dale. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Using Zoom for the first time, so we're learning.
Yeah.
Todd Dale for the applicant from Rothrock Ruckman Inspector. Hope everyone is well.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So I understand you have a tight schedule, so I'll just try and understand that we heard the comments from review session. We're prepared to make another submission to address all the questions that were raised by the board. I would just like to take a brief moment just to confirm the type of application that we're filing, to provide a bit of history, and to do that with the intent that maybe we can get a little bit more of a clear framework going forward to see what the board would like to see. I know there was some confusion. Just to clarify, this application is filed on the appeal calendar, but it's intended to obtain a variance to two specific provisions of the 2014 Building Code, section BC 503 and BC 706.4. So even though it is on the appeal calendar, I just want to clarify, we're not seeking an interpretive appeal that would have wide range effect on other sites. It's specifically a variance for this particular site for the proposed change in use of this existing building. We can expand on the background in the statement, but it would be section 666 of the city charter in conjunction with administrative code section 28-103, which gives the board the power to vary. It also gives the Department of Buildings the power to vary particular sections of the building code. To provide some history on this building, 22 Van Street is an existing building that is authorized for a legal non-conforming residential use. In 2015, the property owner intended to convert this to a conforming office use, which would be allowed in the underlying M11 district. And in conjunction with that application, filed to provide the various fire safety measures that were noted in the statement, which include the exterior stairs, sprinkler system. I know there was a question about a fire alarm that wasn't necessarily included, but I don't think the property owner would have an issue installing that if this could move forward. When this was filed, it was turned down by the Department of Buildings. This is the Staten Island office in 2015. A CCD1 was filed seeking to appeal that. And consistently, the project architect and property owner met with the borough level Department of Buildings to try and move forward, because in their experience, I don't have any examples with me or in the record, but we will seek to provide examples. It was their past history where there were similar type situations where outdated residential buildings in these manufacturing districts were allowed to be converted to commercial use. The core issue, as presented by the Department of Buildings, Staten Island Department, was that they would not allow this to go forward because since this is a frame structure, it is not allowed. And the crux of the issue came to be that Staten Island presented that they wanted the frame structure removed. So the choices to the property owner were either to keep this as a residential building, which I think the board is aware of that area. Nobody realistically would want to live in that building across from the recycling plant and all these heavy industrial uses, or to completely demolish the building because there was no way to provide the non-frame structure. They would just basically have to tear this building down. And what was presented was to try and provide what in the end would be a non-conforming to a conforming use and a safer building. Now, just to provide finally, and then we can get to the meat of it, to continue with the administrative history, after that CCD1 filed, they worked with Department of Buildings. This application was filed at the Board of Standard and Appeals originally in 2018. For a long time, the only denial that was issued by the Staten Island Borough Office, the only denial that they would issue to us was saying does not comply with the 2014 building code. I had had discussion, I believe, with Ms. Matias and BSA staff. We finally were able in 2019 to get this updated to add these specific sections of the building code. And then in conjunction with that, also in 2020, we filed an application with Technical Affairs, which was again at the suggestion of the board. So that is actually running concurrently with this application before the BSA. That was originally filed in January of 2020. There's been responses back from Technical Affairs in February and March. It's still ongoing. The last response we received from them was in March 6th. And I would just note, just for the record here, in January 2020, the very first response we received back from Technical Affairs was, why haven't you filed this at the BSA? So we're trying to move forward and achieve an end which we believe would be a safer building. And right now, the property owner is a little bit stuck between the Department of Buildings and between the board. We understand why the board would want DOB to review this further. DOB has the power to vary these particular points of code. But then when Department of Buildings comes back to us and says, why didn't you go to the BSA? We'd hope you'd appreciate the difficulty we're having here as far as the proper avenue to move forward to achieve the end that we want. So I just wanted to provide that background. And then, towards specific items that were requested, I would say just quickly, and we will seek to see if we can provide other examples of sites where this has happened. We can provide, if the board wants, the emails that we've received from Technical Affairs, just to show that we've actively been trying to work with them. We also received yet another updated denial, which we can submit to the record, which supplements the current one, which references those two sections of the building code. This denial also includes a third objection saying that DOB will not waive the provisions of the building code pursuant to section 28-103. So we have that denial. It's not on the record yet, but we can submit it. So that's my opening speech, I would say. And then hopefully I can answer any other questions or at least set a framework so we can move forward.
Yeah, so my first question is, because I really don't think this is properly before us yet, is the owner and architect working with a code consultant, a code specialist?
I would say our office is really who they're working with. We didn't really get into, they did not move forward with Technical Affairs until January of this year because they were trying to do this. The project architect with us is very familiar working with Staten Island and Staten Island specifically. We actually have worked with him to help draft some of the language to go forward with Technical Affairs, and our office will be prepared to meet with Technical Affairs if that were a proper option. But I would say no specific expert, but that's really because they didn't move forward, I'd say, to the Technical Affairs levels until January of this year.
Because as I mentioned in the review session, my experience with very unusual structures is that you work with a code consultant, somebody who's very familiar with building code, fire code, safety issues. In fact, there are a number of these specialists who that's what they do. And they negotiate with DOB and say, here are the proposals, because the proposals that we've seen look more like a multiple dwelling law waiver where you're sprinklering the hallways and so on. It looked very similar, but it's not the same thing. It's a frame dwelling being converted to an office, which has a much different set of fire standards. But if you were working with a code consultant who specializes in this, you would be more likely to get somewhere. But I'm not saying that the modifications that are being proposed and that were obviously already done without approvals are all that DOB would require. You might have to do substantially more work, but that's not the same thing as demolition. And again, this board is not, as I think Commissioner Otley Brown said, we are not a fire code agency. We listen to the fire department very carefully about their concerns, and we take their recommendations also. So, yeah.
Understood. We agree. We're happy. I think the property owner would agree to, whatever fire safety measures. I believe that the short of this is that this was originally initiated at a borough level, and much of what you're speaking to, I believe, goes beyond that to technical affairs or different areas of DOB. And the original thought, it's not the intent of the property owner not to do that, but they just didn't think that it would be necessary. It is escalated to this particular level. So, as I noted, this is running concurrently with technical affairs. Not that I don't love spending time with you, but if this application weren't necessary and we could work this out with DOB, we'd be more than happy to work this out with DOB, but we just want to protect the property owner's interests and have this filed concurrently.
Okay, so I would say, therefore, the application is premature because until we have a final determination from DOB, there's nothing for us to discuss. I'd like to recognize Shane Rosengold, who's been muted, been on hold here. Can we unmute her? Or maybe she unmutes herself?
No,
Oh, there we go. Nope. Unmute yourself. There we go.
Thank you. Sorry. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I would like to start by pointing out, which you also pointed out earlier, that we believe there was a notice issue because we did not receive notice of the calendaring of this hearing until Thursday. And then the second issue, which you did just point out, we initially thought that this was premature because there is a CCD1 pending. So we wanted to clarify if the applicant is still pursuing the current CCD1. There's also, I think, a mistake in the CCD1, but this is just a small administrative issue, but they checked that they're asking for an interpretation or clarification of section 28-101.4.1, although they're now requesting a variance. So I think that that's what they have meant to, that's what they're actually seeking. And then if they are continuing to pursue this application, we would like to request additional time to submit an explanation for why we believe the code variance is so unsafe. And lastly, we would also request that FDNY opine as to why the proposed conversion of the wood frame building from residential to commercial should not be permitted.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions from the commissioners? This is something I actually like Mr. Steinhaus or Vine to comment on. I actually think the case is prematurely before us until technical affairs has worked this through and proposed and perhaps the owner proposed additional solutions beyond what are being proposed to us, which don't sound like enough. That there's really nothing for us to look at, and I don't want to hold a place on the calendar for a year from now, after they've worked this out, the space is being illegally occupied right now for this use. And I'm sure even today, under these conditions, it's currently being used because the activity is probably fits within necessity. And so I think that it needs to be moved along and pursued with DOB and fire department. But is fire department, is Chief Daly on the line?
He's muted. Oh, go ahead.
I know.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. The fire department's here. Oh, wait. Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chair. I've heard your comment along with the DOB and Commissioner Otley Brown. The fire department does object to this type of application of converting from residential to office use for a wood frame structure. But as the DOB mentioned, they do have a CTD1 still being reviewed. So we will at this time reserve making any further comments on this application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Rosengold, do you want to add anything else?
No, thank you. I believe that's it.
Okay. And Mr. Dale?
Just a couple of quick comments. First, the notice based on the posted board rules is sufficient. The board rules say that for an agency final determination, we're supposed to send it to the administrative officer only. And it was sent to the Department of Buildings. We also sent it to the community board and the borough president, similar to a GCL. Since this is not a interpretation, sending it to DOB and legal counsel, this section says that it is only applications for interpretations of the zoning resolution that have to be sent to them. Now, that said, we are more than happy to send copies to everybody. We'll send a copy to Ms. Rosengold. We'll happily include everybody, but I just want to confirm that the notice as required by the posted board rules was satisfied, okay? So, the second question, as far as to whether this is premature, I would disagree. I would say it's not premature from a legal perspective in the sense that we have a denial stamped by the Department of Buildings, and this was filed within that, and the denial stamped by the Department of Buildings cites the two particular sections of the building code. It was like pulling teeth to get it, but we do have that denial. And we also have a brand new denial that was updated citing a section of the administrative code. So it's not premature from a legal standpoint. I understand from a practical standpoint why the board and why the Department of Buildings would want to have this reviewed by technical affairs. We don't dispute that, and we're happy to provide that information, and to try and work for that. The concern we have, though, is if we move forward with the Department of Buildings and we get a determination from the second CCD1, the one that's currently pending, we don't want to have an unnecessary delay with the BSA application moving forward. We don't think that there's any problem with having these run concurrently. If this were set and adjourned to a date in the future, perhaps the technical affairs review is resolved and we can withdraw the application. But if it's not withdrawn, then we would want to proceed.
So this is my own opinion, and I'd like to hear from council on this, but this was submitted 2 years ago, almost to the day. So in terms of delay, if anything, the delay has been certainly not with the board. The delay has been in however the processing has gone on. And it seems to me that as I said, if you were working with a code consultant, you'd have gotten a lot further than you've gotten so far with sticking to, with the architect sticking to his or her guns, that the only thing that needs to be done is sprinklering and beefing up the staircase somehow. And then that's good enough for making a frame building suitable for office use. So, and as I said also, if the fire department is uncomfortable with this, so is the board, because we are not fire inspectors. And so I think it is in fact premature, and that we should either you withdraw the application or whatever the process is, that we dismiss it and ask that it be refiled at a more reasonable time.
just to jump in quickly before board council, I would just say that after this was filed in 2018, at the request of the board, they asked us to get an updated denial. And with the former borough commissioner of Staten Island, it took literally 18 months and it was very difficult. So any delay, I would say, is directly the Staten Island Department of Buildings, and it's not an effort on
Okay.
either the board's part or our part.
Okay, but
But
the,
heard the board's comments, and so to the extent that they feel that input from the Department of Buildings is necessary to consider this application, and to the extent that they would need information from the fire department as well, it seems that there's really no way for you to move forward with this application at this time. And so obviously the board can dismiss the case, or you can withdraw it and refile later.
I would disagree. We paid the filing fee. We don't think it is unreasonable for the board to adjourn this for 5 months, and with an understanding that at the next time it can be closed. I think that's a very reasonable approach. It's not going to clog up the board calendar if we adjourn this for a number of months while we continue to work with the Department of Buildings. But based on all posted rules as far as notice and legal requirements, we have satisfied those. If the board, chooses to make a decision on the merits, that's different. But if the board wants to dismiss this as being a premature application, we would say that that is in violation of all posted rules.
do I have any comments from commissioners about moving forward on this? Please raise your hand if you know. Anybody? No? Okay. So my feeling about this is really that it's, 5 months, 1 year, look at how long it's been. And I don't know what the question is before us, because we have a code consultant who's arguing at Department of Buildings for whatever. We don't even have a code consultant yet, actually. So I don't think the applicant has even the necessary team put together in order to look at this. So I would actually like to make a motion to dismiss, if that's okay with council in terms of the timing.
Yes.
Okay, so let's
That's a ludicrous decision.
and not for you to decide, Mr. Dale. Let's unmute Commissioner, everybody. Okay, let's unmute. There we go. Okay, so for a motion to dismiss, and of course you're welcome to refile when it's time to refile.
Wait, what is that? Oh.
An airplane flying, please mute. Okay. Tony, motion to dismiss.
Okay. Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta, Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Application's dismissed.
It's dismissed for because it's
For lack of jurisdiction?
or premature. Yeah.
Lack of jurisdiction. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay. Okay, this concludes the public hearing for April 6th, 10 a.m. session. We will resume, I'm assuming at 2 o'clock,
yes.
with the following cases: 15715 BZ, 3925 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn, 2019-15 7940 Cooper Avenue, Queens, 2019-26 233 Nevin Street, Brooklyn, 2019-30 BZ, 2705 East 28th Street, Brooklyn, and 2019-75 BZ, 704 Manhattan, 704 Broadway, Manhattan.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you at 2.
Okay.
Thank you, Shane Rosengold also. Thank you.